Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing Thailand not being Vietnam. And this is something that's come up. I'm going to call this one an editorial. This is kind of an op-ed piece of my own here. I've seen this talked about over the past year and a half when they've been talking about things like, business moving out of China, a lot of it's going to Vietnam, and they sort of put Thailand as sort of strawmen and Vietnam as sort of strawmen in comparing them and sort of creating this, in my opinion, kind of a false paradigm that they're somehow competing. I don't really view it that way. The other thing is, Vietnam is a very different country from Thailand. They're similar in certain ways. They're certainly in the same region, but they have very different histories. They have very different backgrounds. Their people are very different. It's comparing apples and oranges. Now, that stated, a recent article from the Bangkok Post titled "Envoys Urge Rule Reform." There was just a quick excerpt in here that just kind of, I don't know, it got me thinking. It made me want to make this video. Quoting directly, many of the envoys encouraged Thailand to open up to business to reap the benefits of its fast-growing neighbor, Vietnam, which has a flourishing free market while being ruled by a communist regime. Well, that is a strange irony of the 21st century, that communist regimes can have a flourishing free market. I find that somewhat odd, and I think, first of all, that's, again, indicative of this false comparison. Thailand is not a communist country. It's always had free market systems. Yes, I do understand that people can view Thailand's legal system at times as rather Byzantine, and yes, they do take a more protectionist approach compared to other jurisdictions. However, that stated, they're a different kettle of fish from Vietnam, to use an idiom. They're a different country. Not all countries are the same. What's going to work for Vietnam may not necessarily work for Thailand. Meanwhile, and this is not stating this in the pejorative, it's just an observation. Thailand's a more sophisticated economy. Thailand's economy has been much more open for a lot longer, and as a result, their economic infrastructure is a lot different than Vietnam's. Now, Vietnam is growing rapidly, and kudos to Vietnam for, taking the necessary steps to create a much more vibrant economy than the one that they've had in the past. But to compare these two countries, I think is really disingenuous. I just don't think it's correct. And the other thing is it's not a competition. Thailand has their priorities. They have a free market system, as noted in this article, and I urge those who are reading this to go ahead and check this article out. There's a lot in there. Again, it's Envoys Urge Rule Reform, BangkokPost.com. But they note that Thailand is very high on the ease of doing business ranking. So I don't really understand this notion that Thailand should be more like Vietnam or this comparison. I think Thailand's business environment is quite a healthy one. Sure, nothing's perfect. There's certainly reforms that could maybe make things better, but there's also something to be said for maybe not just rushing headlong into systemic changes to a country's economy without sort of weighing out what the positive and negative possible ramifications could be. And I think Thailand has been very good at that. At a national level, they really do pontificate for a while on whether or not a certain course of action that may be beneficial in an economic sense will be wholly beneficial to the nation politically and socially as a whole.